What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Jit Geek, and welcome back to another House of the Dragon Season 1 episode review, discussion, breakdown. Today we're looking at episode 8, and again, what an incredible episode this was. These just keep getting better and better. I think the only thing that could top this one is the White Walkers. If they show up, my God, this is the greatest show ever. I've just had a blast watching it so far, and I can't wait to break this episode down. Again, so much has happened. We've had loads of action, loads of politics. This one even had some prophecy, and of course, we had some deaths. So yeah, let's get into it. Now we're going to start off with the episode review again using the family tree. I thought that worked quite well last time. Let me know what you think in the comments. Now it's clearly obvious now who the two main characters are, and it's not Rhaenyra and Alicent. For me, it's always been Rhaenyra and Viserys, because these two are linked to basically everyone else within the show. We will transition from Rhaenyra and Viserys being the main two to now it being Rhaenyra and Alicent. Alicent's going to step up. Alicent's going to be more of that queen role, probably just for the next episode. And then we will see a lot more of Rhaenyra, a lot more of Daemon, and a lot more of the kids, probably in King's Landing. Towards the end of the season, So, yeah, let's break down this episode. And if it's not too late, I mean, it's like 1:10 in the morning in the UK now, so bit of a late one, but I thought we'd get it out this week. Nonetheless, we can check out episode 9, because for those that are Game of Thrones lovers, we all know what episode 9 is. It's the absolute banger of the season. So I'm really looking forward to the next episode. Whether they adopt that similar approach to how they went with Game of Thrones, which was putting the big showcase piece as number 9, we will see. It's titled The Green Council, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one. Episode 9 is always a good one. I mean, we had Ned Stark's death. We had what was it? The Blackwater battle. We had the Red Wedding. We had the Watchers on the Wall, which is arguably the greatest episode of Game of Thrones. And I think Hardhome. No, Hardhome was number 8, maybe. Battle of the Bastards, that was number 9 as well in season 6. So, let's hope episode 9's as good as episode 8, because my God, this was a good episode. And I think it's all down to one particular individual, and that is Viserys. Paddy Considine's acting is some of the best acting I have seen in years. Honestly, the fact that he didn't even have to do much or say much in this episode is just a testament to not only him as an actor, but the way he portrays Viserys is just impeccable. And it's that good. George Martin has even come out on Twitter and said, you are better than the book version of Viserys. You have made that character better, and I just think that is an incredible compliment to Paddy. So hats off to Paddy. I do, and we've got an X on the family chart here. I do believe he's dead. It's pretty obvious that he's dead because of how the episode finished with the family meal, with that little fuck up basically with the prophecy with Alicent, and she's now thinking it's all to do with Aegon the second. It's pretty obvious that he's with Emma Arryn now, which is a nice end to his character. I thought he went out in probably the best way he could have, which was he settled the score with Rhaenyra and the kids. Jacaerys now is plain sailing towards being the next heir after Rhaenyra. Lucerys is all but being given the what is it, the Lord of Driftmark title, and will be probably known as the Driftwood, Lord of the Driftwood throne going forward, or heir to the Driftwood throne at least. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Corlys. Viserys sorted all that out, and it was some of the best acting I have ever seen. Not even to mention some of the makeup, some of the prosthetics, some of the visual effects was incredible. My God, me and the missus were watching this episode with our jaws to the floors. It was just incredible. But I think we've got a lot to talk about before we get to the not only the throne room, but the end part with the family meal, with all of that shithousery that went on with Aemond and the prophecy stuff. There's lots to talk about ahead of that. We start off 6 years further on than we did to the previous episode. We start off in Driftmark with Rhaenys and Vaemond talking about the succession, because it's established that Corlys is at war with actually we don't know who with, because the Crab King is dead, but we know it's to do with the Battle of the Stepstone still. So I imagine that triarchy is a force to be reckoned with. It's regained its power, and we've gone to war once again there. So maybe there's something there that we'll see in the next episode. I haven't watched the trailer for the next episode yet, so I'm unsure how what Corlys's story is going to be. But yeah, a lot of themes in this episode about inheritance, succession, blood, power, names. I mean, Corlys dropped that banger of a line last episode, and it was in the opening monologue to this episode to say, history doesn't remember blood, it remembers names, and how true that was. And we went into that a little more in detail last episode. But I thought it was a great opening. It established that we've moved forward 6 years, and whilst we haven't had a major change to some of the older characters like Rhaenyra and Daemon and Alicent and Otto, etc., it's clear that Viserys has aged quite a bit, and we've got the new actors playing Alicent's children now. We've got the new actors playing Rhaenyra's children, and it's established later on in the episode that Rhaenyra and Daemon have a couple of children now, and so they probably would have, because we had that scene on the beach last episode. That's probably where Aegon III, also known now as Aegon the Younger, that's probably where he was conceived. And we've got Viserys number 2, named after King Viserys, which I think is quite sweet, and I'm glad they've stuck with those names as well from the books. Baela and Rhaena, who are Daemon and Laena's children, we've had an upgrade for those as well in terms of new actresses for the 6-year jump. Sir Criston Cole remains the same though, and I thought that was an interesting choice. So does Rhaenys, and so does Vaemond, and I imagine they'll stick with the Corlys's actor going forward as well. But we move swiftly from Driftmark straight to Dragonstone, and something that we didn't actually get to see in the Game of Thrones episodes, any of them, partly because Daenerys was in the east, and partly because there were no dragons anywhere else, partly because there were no Targaryens anywhere else. We got to see Daemon picking some dragon eggs. Now, he said to the Dragon Keepers there were 3 eggs. Whether this is a callback to Game of Thrones, and whether these are the 3 eggs that eventually are, and this is a spoiler for the books if you haven't read any of kind of the additional materials, those 3 dragon eggs were actually stolen from, I think it was Harrenhal at some point. So whether these 3 are passed down to the generations, and I think they were stolen at the point of Aegon the Fourth or Aegon the Fifth, by I think her name's Melissa Farman, and it just turns out that we've got 3 eggs here now. Whether, like I said, whether this is a callback to the Game of Thrones and those 3 dragon eggs that that Daenerys was given, who knows? Who knows? We don't know yet, and maybe we'll find out in later episodes of this season whether that's a season 2 thing. I imagine it probably is, because what we gathered from that, though, is that the dragons are in a healthy state. They're producing eggs. They're producing eggs largely for Aegon the Third, Viserys the Second, and probably for Baelor and Rhaena, if they haven't already got their dragons, because that wasn't established in this episode. So I thought that was a brilliant scene. Get the dragons out the gloop, look like cowpat if I'm honest, but get them out there. You could see the smoke and like the fire coming out, and I love the fact that they're still talking Valyrian with the with the dragon pit keepers. But we move on from there then to establish the new children actors playing Rhaenyra's children, and one of them's Ollie from Casualty. A little a bit of trivia there for those that don't know Casualty or are watching outside of the UK. Casualty's kind of the UK version of House or Grey's Anatomy, and is a guilty pleasure, I would say, for me and the missus now and again to indulge. But yeah, Ollie from Casualty playing Jacaerys, and we've got an older version of Lucerys and Joffrey now as well. I thought it was just a couple of sweet scenes here with the talking Valyrian and establishing Jacaerys is establishing himself as king. I am surprised though that they haven't aged them up even more, because especially Alicent's children, they look ridiculously older, especially Aemond. He looks like he's aged about 10 years, whereas the rest have probably aged, they look as though they've aged only about 5 years. So whilst I like Aemond's actor, because he plays, I can't remember who he plays, but he's out of The Last Kingdom, another banger of a show, to be fair. Yeah, the rest don't look like they've aged that much, and I thought it was obvious that was the case. So let's see whether they age them up any further. I don't think they will. I think we're in the timeline of the House of the Dragon now, the timeline of the Dance of the Dragons. So I'm looking forward to what the rest of the season has in store and the rest of the show. George Martin has said this is going to take probably 4 seasons of 10 episodes, which, considering how much material they've got to work with, which isn't a lot from Fire and Blood, they're going to need to A, create a lot of new content for these 4 seasons, and B, I really hope that they stick with the quality that they've delivered in season 1, because it has been absolutely superb. It has blown me out the water. I wasn't expecting this level of quality, and I really hope that they smash it out the park for the next 2 episodes. So much went on in this episode, it was unbelievable, and it just topped off by Paddy Considine's amazing acting, really. What we saw actually prior to when we went to Rhaenyra was Daemon receiving a note to say that Vaemond is looking to challenge the Driftwood throne. He's looking to challenge the claim that Lucerys will now inherit Driftmark after Laenor's death. But he's looking to challenge that because he knows that they are bastards. So they receive this this note. They have a discussion about it, and then it turns out that they go straight on to King's Landing. Now it might seem like they're doing a bit of quick time travel sort of thing, what we saw at the back end of Game of Thrones, but don't forget Dragonstone is very, very close to King's Landing. It's probably closer than any other large town or city within the Seven Kingdoms. So it might feel like they're darting about quite quickly, but yeah, I think considering they're quite close to one another, it's not too difficult to get there, like within the one episode, because what we established in the earlier Game of Thrones episodes was taking that time to get to places, which was the correct thing to do. But in this instance, a boat here and a boat there, and a few hours here and a few hours there is all it's probably going to take to get from Dragonstone to King's Landing. But when we're there, we're greeted with a few things, and one of which is the tapestry is no longer Targaryen. It's been replaced with either subtle Hightower tapestry, Faith of the Seven tapestry, and ornaments, etc. And you can tell that Alicent and Otto are in full swing with control here. They've got their council set up. They are all but leading the government, as in King's Landing. Viserys has no part to play, and they have all but got rid of all sorts of Targaryen looms, tapestry, heraldry, etc. So they're in full swing with their take on on running this sort of government. Now, fair enough, they're probably doing a good job, and they're probably still, doing the best for the realm, doing the best for King's Landing. But what I would say is they've clearly put Viserys on the back burner. And when we jump to the scene with Viserys, Rhaenyra and Daemon, when they introduce the children to Viserys, it's clear that he's in a lot of pain still and discomfort, but it's clear that he's a bit worse for wear. He's probably got dementia, or he's very, very sick, but he's drugged up, and that's a play by Alicent and Otto, I think. Drug him up, get him out the way, and we can run the show then. We can run the show together. So Rhaenyra and Daemon, it was really interesting. They clocked that straight away. So they introduced the children, but beforehand they clocked that Viserys was worse for wear, and he wasn't in a good state. And considering he's probably on a lot of milk of the poppy, he wasn't in, it's the worst they'd ever seen him. But I thought it was sweet what he said about Viserys II. That's a name fit for a king. So he's still clued up on that he is the king, and he knows it was Rhaenyra and Daemon. And I thought it was a really sweet scene. But after that, it was interesting when Rhaenyra and Daemon were talking to Alicent. Daemon didn't stand up for her when she entered the room, and he didn't do that when she entered the banquet hall in episode 5 when she wore the green dress. He was the only one that doesn't stand up, so he really doesn't give a shit about Alicent, and he's all team Rhaenyra, which is great to see. But that was an interesting conversation about about Alicent now knowing the challenge from Vaemond, because he arrives he arrives in King's Landing as well. She's aware of the challenge now from Vaemond for the Driftwood throne, for that Lord of Driftmark title, and there's an interesting conversation between the three parties that yeah, that get very heated when we move into the throne scene later on. I've had to write notes for this one because there's so much has happened. Um, yeah, so much has happened with this one. What we do get though is then we move on to the uh, what do we move on to next? We move on to the is it the maid scene or is it the kids in the courtyard training? Sorry, not training, kind of fighting and doing a bit of messing about. I think it's the maid scene because we then see Alicent go. Oh, we do because she gets interrupted, and she's brought to the chambers where the maid has basically been raped and by Aegon the Second, Aegon the Elder, and she gives her what probably. Well, I debated with my missus whether this was poison or whether this was moon tea. I I have the assumption that it's actually poison and she's gone because the last thing Alicent wants is a bastard, another bastard child, muddying the waters in terms of the succession crisis with the throne, and B, she doesn't want that maid going off and telling King's Landing and telling the world basically that she's carrying the potential heir to the throne's child, bastard child. So I think they've killed that maid off. And I thought it was great acting by Alicent when she went to see Aegon. But equally, I thought it was fantastic acting by Aegon the Second. And the fact that he gets really teary shows that he's trying to be the son that Alicent wants him to be. But no matter what he does, and he even said it himself, it's not good enough. And it's a shame that is because he's in quite a weird situation where yes, Rhaenyra is heir to the throne, but by probably by the laws of gods and men, he should be king, and in Alicent's eyes, he should be king as well. And she almost treats him like he should be king, and he is king or he is heir. So he's got it. He's got it. He's got it bad, our Aegon the Second at the moment and I feel quite sorry for him because he's in a bit of a limbo state. He can't do right for doing wrong. He isn't the heir. Alicent sees him as the heir and treats him as this kind of prince king role. But equally, until Rhaenyra or something happens with Rhaenyra, or until people start to recognise Aegon as king, he's not going to step up to the mark. He's not going to commit to being this prince, to being this king role. So, yeah, I do feel sorry for Aegon at the moment. Equally, though, when she dropped that line about "You're no son of mine," that just reminded me of Tywin in season 4 with Tyrion. Because I'm pretty sure, I can't remember if it was a line from the books or a line from the show as well, when he said to Tyrion, "You're no son of mine." I think that was at the end of season 4 when Tyrion shoots him with the crossbow on the toilet. So we jump from there. I think then we jump to the scene with Jacaerys and Lucerys playing about a bit, going into the courtyard. But then we move into probably the first great action scene of the episode, which was the piece with Aemond dueling with Sir Criston Cole, and it's clear that Sir Criston Cole's done a very, very good job with Aemond. He's taught him to be a very, very good fighter, and I think it's established either in some of the behind the scenes recordings that they've done for the show, and in the books as well, that Criston Cole and his Morningstar weapon, he's lethal with that, and for Aemond to basically take him out in the duel with just a sword and with one eye, don't forget, because that will affect his peripheral vision. Aemond One Eye is looking like he's an absolute badass, and I can't wait to see the duel between him and Daemon, because at the end of that episode they have that little stare down. Yeah, Aemond has probably got respect for Daemon at that point. But my God, that battle's going to be good between those two. And whether that's a battle on Dragonback between Cyrax and Vagar, or whether that's a battle of them on the throat, sword and shield, or it could be like a joust, maybe. I can't wait. That is going to be, hopefully, that is shown in this season, because that will want to be one of the banger parts of this season. Them two get, having a fight one way or another. But yeah, I thought that was a great scene in the courtyard with the battle, with the duel between Sir Criston Cole and Aemond. And when he dropped that line, Aemond, he doesn't give a shit about tournaments. You know what he's about there. He's about actually doing proper fighting. He wants to go to war. He wants to take out some enemies. He wants to probably stick it to Daemon already as well. So Aemond One Eye is going to be a very, very, very key player going forward. Now, we move from there to, I think at that point, it's when Vaemond arrives and he seeks to have some time with Alicent and Otto, largely to stress about the Driftwood throne, largely to stress about his accusations of Lucerys's illegitimacy and being a bastard, basically, but also to try and get Alicent and Otto on his side, because I think he's quickly established that they're going to be the one making the decision. We as the audience know that already, and Alicent had said that when she was speaking with Rhaenyra and Daemon earlier in the episode. But Vaemond's playing a tricky game, or at least he was. At least he was playing a tricky game, and we've got an X in his box now because we all know what happened to him. And for those that don't know, he got his head chopped off, sliced in half, and you can keep your tongue. I thought that was a badass scene I did. Daemon doing all sorts of damage with his Dark Sister Valyrian blade. But anyway, I think we move from that scene to Rhaenys and Rhaenyra having quite an interesting conversation. Rhaenyra's not giving up that she hasn't killed Laenor, and she's just let him go off and have a happily ever after with his kind of bit on the side. She doesn't declare that. But what she does offer, though, is Rhaenys a really, really interesting proposition, which is back Lucerys's claim as Laenor's son, Laenor and mine's son, and what we'll do is we will marry Jacaerys with Baela and Lucerys with Rhaena. We'll bind the houses together. And I think this is doing two things, probably three things here. It's helping Lucerys with the Driftwood throne. It's keeping the Velaryons on the side of the Blacks, i.e. the side of Rhaenyra, and it's keeping the Velaryons minus Vaemond away from Alicent. It's keeping them on them side, so it's a political move from a number of reasons from Rhaenyra, and she's playing the Game of Thrones really clever there, because she's helping herself out equally. From the perspective of, and this has probably only just occurred to me, if Lucerys is given the green light to become the Lord of Driftmark, that then in turns give equal legitimacy to both Jacaerys and Joffrey as well. So by legitimising one, you essentially legitimise all three. I mean, that's my opinion anyway. So she's done well there, Rhaenyra, by propositioning Rhaenys with that double marriage pact, and that then when we move into the throne room scene, that then comes back to be a very, very strong political move from Rhaenyra, because it's interesting that when we get Viserys rock up, he doesn't question the legitimacy of Lucerys. He is baffled as to why we're there. He's baffled as to why anyone is making a falsehood claim against not only the legitimacy, but the fact that Lucerys is, by all means, Laenor's son, and he is the rightful Lord of the next Lord of the Tide, next Lord of Driftmark. The only person he seems to question is Rhaenys, and because she would know Corlys's, what did he say? Corlys's opinion, or Corlys's kind of will and testament to what he wants for the Driftwood throne. That proposition that Rhaenyra made comes back to help both parties there. Because it's Rhaenys that really puts the nail in the coffin in terms of putting the rubber stamp, on Lucerys's legitimacy, and agrees there and then to marry the Daemon and Laena's girls with Rhaenyra and Daemon's boys, keeping it very Targaryen, keeping the bloodline very close, and helping the dragon, that sort of dragon rider future as well. That's probably another reason. Keep the bloodlines nice and pure, as they like to do. But the standout moment of this episode, the absolute creme de la creme, and probably it's arguably that it's the standout moment of the entire show so far, is the acting from Viserys. When we move into the throne room, my God, I tip my hat to you, Paddy Considine, because that acting was unbelievable, and the gravitas that Paddy brings to that acting, to that role as Viserys. For once, he looks commanding. Viserys did. He's at his most vulnerable state. He's at his weakest point in his life. He's never been this ill, but my God, does he do a good job of making sure that people listen to him, and he doesn't give Vaemond a chance to put his claim to the Driftwood throne across. Vaemond does it anyway, and that line when he screams, "They are bastards, and she's a whore." Well, that was it then. That was it. The fact that he basically committed probably triple treason. He'd gone against the word of the king. He'd called the heirs of royal blood bastard children. He'd gone against the wishes of the king. No, that was number one. Number two, basically illegitimizing royal blood, and he'd called the heir to the throne a whore. No wonder he got his head sliced off by Daemon, and that was a cracking scene. That was. I didn't see that coming when his head just got completely lopped off, and you can see how sharp and how cutthroat, mind the pun there. You can see how sharp and how dangerous Valyrian steel is, because it cuts clean, and you can see that by how Vaemond got his head sliced in half. Some of the visual effects there was unbelievable, brilliant. What a scene! But that acting from Viserys, the way he was breathing, the way he was moving, it was just so realistic, and he put so much effort into it. And I love the fact that when the crown fell on the floor, and this was all over Facebook and Twitter afterwards, that was an improvised scene, and the director said it wasn't an intention for the crown to fall on the floor, but we just kept the cameras rolling, and we had Daemon pick up the crown and put it on Viserys' head. And I love the fact that it was only Daemon that Viserys would allow to help him. because he didn't want anyone else, and it's clear that Daemon really loved his brother Viserys then. So yeah, a few cracking scenes in the throne room, the acting, the action with Vaemon getting his head sliced off. Then we move into, I think we move straight away then onto Rhaenys more. Well, whether it was the morning scene or whether it was the reflection scene of her looking on Vaemon's body and then talking with one of the maesters about the stranger. Now, don't forget the stranger is one of the faith of the seven, so one of the seven gods of the faith of the seven, who is it's pretty obvious, but is the almost like the god of death and the god of unknown. So I thought it was great that they tied the faith of the seven in there with with that scene. I didn't quite get that scene at some. It was only on a second watch where I thought, oh, I actually get what she's doing there. She's almost reflecting that she's had a lot of death her way, and excuse me, hopefully, Vaemond is the last. Is the last of it for now. I mean, supposedly Laenor went last episode. Laena went the previous episode before. Corlys looks like he might be on his deathbed. I don't think he is. I think he'll recover. All but he'll recover, but not as good as he was before. I don't think he'll come back as strong. And now she's had Vaemond. So I think she's in quite a vulnerable position. She's had a lot of death around her, and she's hopeful that that is the last of it for now. What we move, I think, afterwards, is it the prophetic scene with Rhaenyra? And I thought this was a great. I mean, there's so many great scenes in this episode. We move into that kind of thunderstruck by night scene with Rhaenyra and Viserys. I mean, touching on the prophecy stuff, you know me, I'm a massive fan of the prophecy stuff. All of that Prince That Was Promised, Song of Ice and Fire stuff. That is what has made this show so much better for me. I know people have got their qualms about the prophecy stuff and they say it shouldn't be involved. No, I'm all for the prophecy stuff, because if it gets me White Walkers in this show, my God, that would be good. I don't think we will see White Walkers, mind you, but it almost adds that element of White Walkers to the show. And the fact that Game of Thrones shied away at the death with prophecy was a kick in the teeth for me, and it's what turned it just from a great fantasy show into a bog standard kind of medieval drama. So I'm so glad they've introduced the prophecy stuff, and I'm so glad we haven't had it for a while. So I'm so glad we've rekindled the prophecy magic, because it's clear that Rhaenyra's taking it seriously. Equally, though, she has a heavy burden with the Iron Throne on her shoulders. She knows her father is on death's door. She knows he's going to go soon. Equally, though, I gathered that she doesn't want the throne now. She thinks it's too much work. She thinks it's too much effort. And she says it herself. By naming her heir, you have divided the throne. You have divided the realm. Because that's an interesting piece of foreshadowing there, dividing the realm. Because yes, we're already starting to see the Team Green, Alicent and the Hightowers, and Team Black, Rhaenyra, Daemon and the Targaryens and the Valerians, but I suspect that line will be, exacerbated. That will be blown up And I don't mean gone. I mean that will go. That will increase exponentially. That line will. So we will see a lot more divide, I believe, in the next couple of episodes. Equally, though, and as I said, she's taking the prophecy stuff very seriously. She knows that it is her duty not just to be the heir to the Iron Throne, but to be this new potentially to be the prince or the princess that was promised. But on reflection, I think every king would see that. Every king, because if it's not themselves, they would see in their eyes that it would be their heir, and it's usually like the next king. What I would say is, though, this is probably the same thing that happens, that trickles all the way down the lineage of the Targaryens. I am still adamant that it is Jon Snow that is the prince that was promised, because he is promised. He's promised by Lyanna on her deathbed to Ned, albeit that's in the show, mind you, but I think that will be similar in the books. He's promised in that sense. Maybe he's promised in another sense as well. And I think it was either In Deep Geek or Civilization X. They did a video where there's a potential theory that, or it could have been Lucifer means Lightbringer. Anyway, there's a potential theory that Jon Snow has been promised to the others, potentially. And whether then he becomes the Night King, I don't know. So there might be a kind of double standards in terms of the a prince who was promised. Because don't forget, if Jon Snow turns out to be Rhaegar Targaryen's son, he is a prince and he was promised by Lyanna. So I don't think the prince that was promised is Aegon II. I don't think it's Aegon III. I don't think it's Rhaenyra, because it was touched on and established in this episode that Viserys thinks Rhaenyra is the prince that was promised, but I don't think that is the case. Nonetheless, great scene. Love the prophecy stuff. Love that they've continued including that. I don't think it's the last of it as well. This episode, this season, sorry. Whether we see some in the next episode, unsure. Maybe we see more of that coming into the climax in episode 10. We then transition to that great scene with Otto and Viserys, and it's clear that Otto wants to keep him drugged up. He wants to keep Viserys in check. He wants to keep him almost submissive and almost at the behest of Alicent and Otto. Because if he's drugged up and if he's not himself, then they can control him, very easy. But no, Viserys is like, no more milk of the poppy. I want a dinner sorted. I want the family there, and I want us to reconcile things. And I thought it was a great little scene. Now, I think it's at this point the show moves into the throne room stuff. I know we've just touched on it, but I think, we move from here to... I think it's from here, where Vaemond gets his head sliced off. And then we transition into the dinner scene, which is, apart from the Viserys acting, is probably a couple of the standout moments. Because, we get some further great acting by Viserys. And there was an interesting thing that I read on Twitter where on Alicent's side and when he takes the mask off Viserys, you'll notice that his damaged side of his face, or would it be that side? His damaged side of the face is on the side of Alicent and the Greens, and his kind of healthy side of the face is on the side of the Blacks and Rhaenyra and Daemon. So I thought that was an interesting bit of interesting metaphor there, and potentially some foreshadowing to showcase what the future of the greens and the blacks will be. Now, one point I want to mention is I don't think they've done a good enough job, and it's probably one of the only critiques I've got about the show so far. I don't think they've done a good enough job establishing Alicent and the Greens and her side as morally grey. And what I mean by that is George R.R. Martin only writes morally grey characters. It's very, 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 very rare that he'll write a very bad or a very good character. They've always got some sort of morally grey to them. I mean, look at Rhaenyra. She's done good things for bad reasons and bad things for good reasons. That makes her morally grey. Equally so as Daemon. But I think they've established Alicent as almost a bad guy too much. And I see a lot of polls as well about, are you team black, are you team green? And the majority of people are team black, i.e. team Rhaenyra. So I think they've established Alicent and her clan as, too much of the bad guys. And hopefully they turn that around in the next couple of episodes. Let's see. But what I would say is the dinner scene is absolutely unbelievable. It is fantastic. One of my favourite scenes in this entire show so far. Again, great speech by Viserys. Great acting by Paddy Considine. The makeup, the visual effects, whatever that was to get that eye in the way that they did was unbelievably good. And I loved it. It was a bit gruesome for some, but I absolutely loved it. We had the speech by Viserys, but it was a great speech. And it was a great way for him to go out, really, because, everyone started getting along and, Rhaenyra made the toast to Alicent. Alicent made those equally made some words back to, some positive words to Rhaenyra. But then the shithousery started with the kids because they just can't help themselves. Aegon II picking on Jace and Jacaerys. But then we had Aemon One Eye dropping that absolute banger of a line, or banger of a speech, should I say, about the Strong Boys. And when he said that, I was in uproar in my chair. I was absolutely loving it. And I can't believe the shithousery that came out of his mouth, because the absolute bomb that he dropped there, it just caused mayhem. And I loved it. I love the fact that we've still got great politics and he's going to be a cracking character moving forward. But you can already see from, how that finished, you can already see the rivalry between Aemond and Daemon already established, and I think that was brilliant that they established it there. But at that point, Rhaenyra and Alicent made up almost. Alicent wanted her to come back. Rhaenyra said, yep, we'll put the kids to bed. We'll come back on Dragonback. And it was quite a sincere moment, because you could see that they were talking from the heart. They were being truthful, but they were not just doing it out of respect for Viserys and because of his wishes. I think they ultimately saw eye to eye at that point. But we all know what happened after. That all changes after the next scene with Alicent and Viserys, because Alicent rocks up to Viserys' bed, and again her side, the side of the Greens, is the side of the dodgy eye. So again, that's kind of that metaphorical foreshadowing about potential, that might be the potential future of, the High Towers, the green side. But the fact that Viserys was waffling on about the prince that was promised, he couldn't get his words out correctly. He thought that it was Rhaenyra, and Alicent thought Viserys was talking about her Aegon II. Oh my God, it just caused absolute absolute nightmare. Now Alicent thinks Aegon is the rightful heir, and she also thinks that that was Viserys' dying wish. I don't think she clocked onto the whole prince that was promised, Aegon's dream, a song of ice, the song of ice and fire. I don't think she's clocked much of that. They did zoom in on the blade though, and because Rhaenyra knows about the blade and knows about the prince that was promised, I think that will be brought up. I think something along the lines will be brought up in the next 2 episodes. But now Alicent thinks Aegon II is the rightful heir. She thinks it's the dying wish of Viserys, whereas Rhaenyra is actually still the heir and has been established as what Viserys thinks is the prince, or the princess, should I say, the princess that was promised. Because don't forget, in episode 1, he equally promised her. He said, "You've got to do this for me, Rhaenyra. Promise me you'll do this." So I guess, are they trying to establish her as the prince that was promised? In one light, yes, but I really don't. I hope to God that they don't establish Rhaenyra as the prince that was promised, because I don't think she is. I think it's still Jon Snow, ultimately, that will be the prince that was promised, at least in the books. Whether they do a Game of Thrones reboot at some point, I really hope they do. Jon Snow will eventually be the prince that was promised in my eyes. But yeah, I think that wraps up the episode. Cracking episode. What I think we'll do is we'll go through, as we normally do, we'll jump from the family tree now, and we'll go through the we'll go through the, let's see if we can get the episode up. There we go. And last time we had our first chatter, our first guest in the live chat. So I thought that was a great milestone to have. And if you're watching out there, feel free to join in on the chat, and let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a like if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel. Plenty more content to come. It's been a busy few weeks in terms of things at home and at work, but I've got some real strong plans going forward with the channel. Lots of content, lots of ideas, and I'm looking forward to doing it as well. But nonetheless, let's round off this episode review with another look at the episode. See if we can pick up anything that we've missed, any little subtle bits that we've missed. I mean, we talked about this being established 6 years in the future, 6 years on from episode 7, start off in Driftmark with the clear purpose of the episode, which was the legitimacy of Viserys and his the heir to the Driftwood throne. We're on Dragonstone. We get the eggs. Now, does he say 3 eggs? There you go. So whether that's a subtle nod to Daenerys' eggs, I'm unsure. Because there's a theory that Daenerys' eggs were stolen at one point, took on a ship, ended up back in, took a big loop round to Yi Ti and Ashai, and then fell into the hands of Illyrio Mopatis, who gave them to Daenerys on her wedding day. So whether they're the same eggs, I don't think we'll establish that this season. So we got Rhaenyra and Daemon. understanding that they... Oh, I didn't clock that. Understanding that they need to go to that they need to go from Dragonstone to King's Landing because of this whole thing with Vaemond. But I've just noticed there that they've got a third on the way. And I did clock, and we'll get to it later on, I did clock Rhaenyra keep touching her stomach in the episode, and I thought, is she just conscious? Is the actress conscious, maybe, about her costume or something? But no, they've got a third on the way. And it's only just occurred to me. So, again, I mean, I just love all the tapestry and the heraldry. And I know George Martin, like I said, that was something that George Martin wanted more of. Now, they're greeted. Lord Caswell, I don't know who he is. Oh, we've got good old Beesbury. I mean, he's set for the box soon. I think he'll be the next one to snuff it. And the exhaustive accounting. But we got a couple of new members on the council, I believe, or is it just this guy with the dark hair on the left? I'm unsure who he is. But we've got the Maester that took over from Melos, because don't forget, we're probably about 20 years into the future now, where Melos was quite old at the time anyway. And then we've still got, I think it's Tyrell Lannister, because Jason Lannister, the twin, is Lord of Casterly Rock. So they get greeted. I think, yeah, they're still talking about the war on the Stepstones, and it's establishing that as a continual threat. And what was interesting, that because Viserys is now really ill, all his model of Valyria is it's full of cobwebs. Poor man just wants to play with his Legos. But I loved this scene when they introduced the children to him. I thought that was really good scene. And the acting there, I mean, some of the makeup and the acting is just phenomenal from Paddy Considine there. But yeah, let's introduce the kiddies. I love how they give like subtle acting bits here with Daemon, and he's not too happy with them drugging him up on milk of the poppy. Oh, here we get the maid scene. That's straight after there, right? Now, they do give us something, because this handmaiden, who actually is something that I forgot, and it is on my notes. That's the handmaiden we see at the end talking with Massaria. I'm pretty sure of it. And if it's not, then it's another handmaiden that's very close to Alicent. So I wonder what Massaria... Well, we'll get to the Massaria piece, actually, at the end. But going from her drinking that, and it's probably a combination, to be fair, of poison and milk of the poppy, or milk tea, or whatever it was called, moon tea. But I thought this was great acting by Aegon, establishing himself as... He's quite lost, I think, and he doesn't really know what to do with himself because... Like I said, Alicent wants him to be basically the prince, the king's heir, and act like the king's heir, but he's not taking it seriously. Now, we established that these two are married. I don't think we've established whether they've had any children yet, but... Yeah. But we've established that they're definitely married, because in the previous episode, it was spoken that they were betrothed. So 6 years down the line, they're married. Maybe they've had some kids. I wouldn't put it past them that they have. That I wouldn't be so shocked that they have. So, and maybe that's the next addition to the family tree that we've got going here, because that seems to get bigger and bigger. What isn't established though in this, and here's a small book spoiler, is Viserys and Alicent have actually had a fourth child, and that fourth child, I heard today, we will be. It's not being discounted, but we'll be seeing that child. I think it's Aemon or some similar name to that. We'll be seeing him in season 2. So I love the fact that Damon doesn't doesn't stand up for Alicent when she walks in, even though they establish her as the, still see her as the queen, and they're clearly not happy with what they're doing with Viserys. Now, yeah, this part, talking about their Harwin Strong being the dad. They know the score now. They knew it in a couple of episodes prior to this one. They know the score, but this I thought was a brilliant piece of action. And Aemon looks like one badass fighter. So I can't wait to see him and Daemon get it on with the swords or with the dragons. But we see Vaemond rock up, get himself on some time with Otto and Alicent, establish his purpose as being there. We get the... Rhaena looks like she is... Is that Rhaena or Baela? Let's just quickly go back to the... Yeah, one of them, I think it's Rhaena, who's the younger one, is... I think, yeah, because we saw at the start of the episode, Rhaena is... No, sorry. You got Baela and Rhaena. Rhaena is with the grandmother on Driftmark, and then we've got Baela, the younger one, younger daughter of Daemon and Laena, is with... She's either stewarding at King's Landing or she's with Rhaenyra. I can't quite decide, because they embrace as if they haven't seen each other, those two do. Anyway, we get the proposition, back to Lucerys, and we'll put some marriages together. And I think it's the right thing to do for her. And then we get the prophecy scene. Brilliant acting, actually. It's probably the first time I've been impressed with the actress that plays Rhaenyra's acting. Again, I'm still not warming to her, but this is doing a good job in helping me come around. I know my missus said she's really warm to the new Rhaenyra, but no, I still haven't warmed fully to her. And I think she's lost her edge. She's still on edge. She's still uptight. She still seems really reserved and a different character to what we saw with the younger Rhaenyra. Very feisty she was, very Targaryen. Rhaenyra at the moment doesn't seem Targaryen enough to me. She doesn't act with fire and blood enough to me. Yeah, she did that thing last time with Laenor and she put that whole plan together, but she doesn't act with that kind of brattiness and that fire in her belly with her attitude. And I want to see more of her with that, with embracing her, being a Targaryen, acting as a Targaryen. Because we see that from Daemon, subtle things here and there, little facial expressions, little subtle little words here and there. We don't see that enough from Rhaenyra, I don't think, at the moment. But I love the fact that they're continuing with the prophecy stuff, and Rhaenyra clearly takes that as serious as she does the Iron Throne. But some great acting there, yeah, by Rhaenyra. Now we move into them. That's establishing that Viserys wants the dinner, wants the supper, and he doesn't want any more pain relief. And then we get onto the absolute cracker part of the episode. So we get Vaemond's speech, and then as soon as Rhaenyra starts talking, We get the man himself enters the room looking like a WWE wrestler on Royal Rumble. And what an entrance. I love the fact that he takes his time. I mean, the mask looks a bit crap. It looks a bit plasticky. That's probably the worst part of it. But yeah, I thought it was a cracking scene. Absolutely brilliant. And the acting from all parties here. The dialogue was brilliant. And when he's huffing and puffing, trying to get up the stairs, and that's the part when the crown drops off his head. Let's see, I don't want to get copyrighted. There we go. That wasn't in the script, and that was something that Paddy and Damon just continued with. But it's great to see that Damon's got all the love for his brother, and that's all he really wanted for him. To give him the truth, to be the hand by his side, to offer him support and love, and for Viserys to want him. Maybe we didn't see enough of that, and I don't think Viserys gave Daemon enough of what he wanted. But it's nice. The fact that he's gone out now, Viserys, is that they had this moment, and I really do love the fact that they had this moment. So we've established that the succession shouldn't be questioned, but then we go to Rhaenys about the marriage pact, but then Vaemon isn't having it. Now let me just see. You're no son of mine. Where does he say it? Oh, I love that part. So he says here, I will not see the Valerian name end on an account of Lucerys being a bastard and Lucerys not even being a Valerian. And he says it. Say it. And he whispers it so gently. And then we get it. Bastards! Reminded me. And Ollie from Casualty's not happy. No one looks happy apart from Aemond. I've just got that he's smiling there. And then Viserys is, I'll have your tongue for that, and gets his little knife out. Let me see if we can get the... Oof! That's a cracking shot, that is. That's brilliant. And Aemond loves that. The fact that he's just took him out. Yeah, we'll skim past this part. We've spoken about this. And then we get onto the banquet, the dinner scene. And it starts off really pleasant. They're doing some praying. He makes a good speech. He takes the mask off to show his eye, because we haven't seen it at this point, I don't think. And look at that for makeup. That's bloody marvellous. That is how they do that. They do the niceties. He makes that great speech about let's come together for the sake of this old man and for the crown and for the realm, because it's clearly not helping and he doesn't like it. And then they do the toasts. Just trying to see if we've missed any little subtle details. So they've clearly established that they've got more in common. They've got a lot in common, Alicent and Rhaenyra. And I love the fact it makes it more personal, this does, the rivalry between the two of them, because they previously established them as friends. If they hadn't have done that, and if they would have followed what was going on in the books, this sort of thing wouldn't have been so impactful, because they would have just been like acquaintances. Whereas because they're friends here, I just think it makes their relationship so much better, so much deeper, and it adds another level of complexity to it. All of that teasing from Aegon was brilliant as well, about him being betrothed to his new wife and not knowing what to do in the bedroom. And then we get Ollie from Casualty. He's following the chat as well on the phone. And then Helena speaks up and says something about Aegon ignoring her unless he's drunk, and then he wants a bit. Oi, oi. But then we move into the dancing and the music, and everyone's having a great time. And then the king goes. So the king doesn't see Aemon's speech actually, and all the shithousery that comes here. Now, what I forgot about was I think it was episode 6, when they first established the children, when they brought out the pig for Aemond, and I think that was why Lucerys was laughing at this point. It was either that, or he thinks that because he's got his eye patch on, he can't see the pig and he can't see what's going on. Equally, though, I just love this speech from Aemond, and we'll try and see if we can get the subtitles. Let's drain our cups to these 3. Strong boys. I love it. Oh, brilliant. He doesn't give a shit, Aemond. He's brilliant. And then they have the big, then it just kicks off. And then Daemon's like, nah, mate, come on. And that's the rivalry started. Right there. Right there. Now, at this point, like I said, they're friends now. They've turned it around. They're doing it for Viserys. And ultimately, they're doing it for the realm. They're doing it for the kingdom. They're doing it for the crown. Because, as well, Rhaenyra's children have been legitimised, or at least one of them has. And like I said, if you do the one, it's caused. Of course, it should be reflected for the other 2. Now, I did forget about this scene with Mysaria. And yes, it is. It's the same woman we saw with the same handmaiden with the maid and the milk of the poppy. So maybe, actually, I've just had a thought here. Maybe that was just moon tea, and maybe they haven't poisoned the maid, because what we could establish here now is gossip going back that there is a maid in King's Landing that is potentially has oh no, because it would have been moon tea. I was going to say potentially has a bastard child of Aegon II, but there again, she could just be telling Mysaria about the goings on in King's Landing, about the succession crisis, about what's going on with all the children, about Vaemond's death. She could just be feeding Mysaria information that way. And I wonder what Mysaria's. I wonder what her motives are here. Is she still working with Otto? Is she a lone wolf now? Is she trying to get back at Daemon? Is she working with Daemon? Maybe. Who knows? I think this won't be the last time we see Mysaria this season, though. And then we finish off the episode with more prophecy stuff. You know, I'm loving the prophecy stuff, but the fact that they've used the prophecy stuff to establish why Alicent has ultimately pushed for Aegon II, mind you, to be the prince, because she believes that it's Viserys' dying wish for his son Aegon to be the king. And I actually like the fact that they've used the prophecy stuff for both Alicent and Rhaenyra as almost a plot device to push the story forward for both of them. Because it's coming at different perspectives now. Alicent's using this prophecy stuff as a way to get her Aegon onto the throne, and Rhaenyra is using it as a grander storyline, something that sits above all of this politics and nonsense. And it's interesting that they give us a close up of the blade as well. But then again, fantastic acting by Viserys, and look at that makeup. Look at that makeup and that great shot to end with, and then my love, he's gone to Emma peacefully, thinking that his family are at peace, thinking his family are a one unit, but no, this is the start of the Dance of the Dragons. This is the start of the House of the Dragon succession crisis. This is ultimately the start of the show. And what an episode. What an episode. Now, if you liked the review, and I'm loving doing these reviews, and I can't wait to do the next one next week. If you like the review, feel free to drop a like on the video. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. Feel free to drop us a comment. And looking forward to doing the next couple of episodes. We've got some gaming content coming up this weekend as well, so look out for that. But yeah, absolutely banger of an episode. Some great acting, some great scenes, some great action, and I can't wait for the next one. So yeah, thanks a lot for joining in, and take care. See you soon.